One of my favorite things to witness about this movie is the reaction it has garnered from a certain set of online conservatives. They've been doing that thing they do whenever a piece of media comes out that doesn't outright support their absolutely brain-dead worldview, and that's to call it woke. I saw one guy say Hollywood ruined this movie by making it woke and liberal, and that the version from the 80s is better, and the one thing I need to ask this type of dude is, did you read the book? Do you actually remember what the original movie was like, or is it just rather that you remember watching this movie as a kid and like Arnold Schwarzenegger because you think he's based? Fucking idiots. Oh, here's the trigger warning list. Hello everyone! It is Tuesday, I am Tuesday, and today we're going to be talking about The Running Man, and by that I mean we will be examining 2 movies and a novel without losing our minds too much to the media literacy rate of your average American shopper. Here's how it's gonna go. Since neither of these 2 things are even possible without our cult pulp thriller over here, we're gonna take a deep dive into the story of the novel before looking at its various adaptations. This whole endeavor is going to go nutso bonkers a little bit, so grab some popcorn, sit down, and keep your eyes glued to that screen because Ben Richards is busting ass, shining light on America's modern injustices. The monster? He could be menacing our profits in your neighborhoods as we speak, so you don't want to miss this super special episode because reporting this anti-state deviant could net you 5 whole good boy dollars from our techno-fascist rulers. Welcome to The Running Man! For those of you who don't know, The Running Man is a dystopian thriller novel written by Stephen King under the pseudonym Richard Bachman and published in 1982. It follows the exploits of one Ben Richards as he attempts to survive for 30 days while being hunted for sport on America's most popular game show. Along the way, he encounters an underground group of anti-government truth seekers, is shown the true nature of America's cruelty, and dies a fiery death, taking revenge on the system in the only way he knows how. Now, obviously, I'm going to be spoiling this, but if you endeavor to read this novel for yourself, a couple of things are going to stand out to you. Environmentalism, and the N-word. I'll get into the green stuff here in a second, but I really need to address this first, so bear with me. This novel's got a bit of racism in it. Okay, I don't mean to say that I think Stephen King is racist. Stephen, I don't think you're racist. It's more that the genre this book is written in can be racist at times, and the DNA of that racism makes its way into The Running Man's pages. Consider this book is a pulp thriller. Consider how it has a lot of dime store tropes. We have our grizzled protagonist down on his luck and doing whatever he can to get by and provide for his family. We have in one both the loving wife and woman of the night, Sheila, who has turned to prostitution in order to get money for her and Richard's daughter. We have the machismo reaction of being emasculated by this fact. And of course, we have the racism. Think theatrical cut of Blade Runner. Within the pages of The Running Man, we have a white character dropping the hard R in the year of our Lord 2025, and a group of black characters who would likely be seen as caricatures if they had been written by someone who wasn't named Stephen King. That being said, the novel as a whole is not ideologically racist, and I think that comes through in the humanity present within its characters. I would argue that the true heroes of this novel are a pair of black Bostonians who have been systematically oppressed by an authoritarian capitalist system. Sure, Richards uses the N-word on a couple different occasions, and he shouldn't do that, but it's more in the way a shitty 12-year-old would say something horrible in order to get a rise out of their parents. Unironically, this is something Richards does to Killian in the book. It's not something he really seems to believe in. He actually expresses a deep sense of empathy and kinship for the majority of black characters he meets, and is more just part of the vernacular of a poor Midwestern or Southern white dude. It is not right by any means, and I enjoy its exclusion from every adaptation, but I also genuinely think its presence in the novel is to help reinforce how gross the world is. Speaking of, I actually need to start talking about what this story is. From The Running Man's opening pages, it is made abundantly clear that there are no good people left in the America we are reading about. Whatever goodness did exist within the great and God-fearing nation has been ground out by the ever-accumulating power of capital and its ever-encroaching mixture of propaganda and surveillance. Every home, even the lowliest hovel, is legally required to have a television in it. Every person is constantly bombarded by horrific game shows in which the moral failures of society are tortured for our continued amusement. Every workplace is subject to vicious anti-labor overreach, and the economy itself has been bifurcated into two levels through the use of old dollars and new. Enter into this mess one Ben Richards, family man and honest worker who was blacklisted from all employment for having the audacity to talk to a union rep. Not about anything like important, mind, just about the dangers of working around radioactive material. Richards has a sick daughter. Richards needs money. Through a disturbing series of routinely malignant events, Richards becomes a contestant on The Running Man, a game show fan favorite designed to kill anti-authoritarian agitators and reinforce the propaganda of fear, plastering itself across the freebie. No one has ever made it longer than 8 days on this 30-day manhunt, and Richards is likely doomed to die the second he signs on. His only real hope is to survive long enough to earn whatever prize money it will take to get his daughter to a doctor and his wife out of poverty. Everything else is secondary. Thus, begin the hunt. Very early on, we are introduced to some key names who will keep popping up in our discussion, so let me give you a brief rundown. First, we have Sheila and Kathy Richards, the eponymous wife and daughter. Next, we have Dan Killian, executive producer and ordinary piece of shit. He's a great example of the whole banality of evil concept, people like bandying around when it comes to authoritarian assholes. We have Bobby Thompson, the show host, and Evan McCone, lead hunter and extraordinary piece of shit. Into this mix is thrown two other contestants, Laughlin and Jansky, who do a little bit and nothing respectively. Killian tells Richards that our boy has a great shot at winning the whole enchilada, and that he has to send in 2 videotapes every day by mail in order to keep receiving prize money. Richards tells Killian he'll be back and then gets shoved in an elevator with a 12-hour head start to escape his certain doom. Richards uses some of the cash advance he gets for participating in this death game to buy a disguise, a fake ID, and a ticket to the Big Apple. He's gonna be a star! Some shit happens and Richards runs to Boston, where he narrowly escapes the local police by blowing up a YMCA. He kills 5 people, hunting him in the process, receiving $100 for each head. Now's a good time to bring up Bradley Throckmorton as he introduces us to the story's true soapbox. Bradley is a poor black man living in a ghetto in Boston. The leader of a local gang, he has turned to crime in order to pay for his sister's medicine. Medicine she needs to treat the pain of cancer. Cancer she has because of the pollution she breathes in every single day. For you see, Bradley does not run a criminal enterprise interested in stealing money. Bradley runs a criminal enterprise interested in stealing information. Mostly. They do steal other things, like my guys need to make a living somehow, but they are mostly interested in all the environmental regulations that have been stripped away over the years to allow for the advancement of industry. Let me learn you something from this here tome. All the tissues in your lungs swell up. You heave and heave and heave, but they're still out of breath. You know a lot of people who get like that? Richards thought. He did. He knew a lot of people who had died like that. They don't talk about that one, Bradley said, as if he had read Richards' thought. Now, the pollution count in Boston is 20 on a good day. That's like smoking 4 packs of cigarettes a day just breathing. On a bad day, it gets up as high as 42. Old dudes drop dead all over town. Asthma goes on the death certificate, but it's the air. And they're pouring it out just as fast as they can, big smokestacks going 24 hours a day. The big boys like it that way. Those $200 nose filters aren't worth shit. They're just 2 pieces of screen with a little piece of methylated cotton between them, that's all. The only good ones are from General Atomics. The only ones who can afford them are the big boys. They gave us the freebie to keep us off the streets so we can breathe ourselves to death without making any trouble. How do you like that? The cheapest GA nose filter on the market goes for $6,000 new dollars. We made one for Stacy for $10 from that book. We used an atomic nugget the size of the moon on your fingernail. Got it out of a hearing aid we bought at a hawk shop for $7. How do you like that? Richard said nothing. He was speechless. When Cassie boots off, you think they'll put cancer on the death certificate? Shit. They'll put asthma. Else somebody might get scared. Somebody might knife a library card and find out lung cancer is up 700% since 2015. Is that true? Or are you making it up? I read it in a book. Man, they're killing us. The freebie is killing us. The freebie is killing us. It's like a magician getting you to watch the cakes falling out of his helper's blouse while he pulls rabbits out of his pants and puts them in his hat. He paused and then said dreamily, "Sometimes I think that I could blow the whole thing out of the water with 10 minutes talk time on the freebie. Tell him. Show him. Everybody could have a nose filter if the network wanted them to have one, and I'm helping them." Richard said, "That ain't your fault. You gotta run." This here is the philosophical onus of this work. Everything written after page 171 of The Running Man is done so with the ecological devastation inherent to capitalism in mind. Richards goes to great lengths in order to spread this message of industrial devastation to as many people as possible. He attempts to wake up middle-class assholes by reminding them their clothes are more expensive than some human lives. He blows up a fucking building, all in the name of trying to destroy the system, killing humanity for a few more percentage points of profit. I think that's why I'm okay with him dying at the end, because by that time he has long since transformed from man into folk hero martyr. Anyway, this is what I meant at the beginning of the video about conservatives not understanding media. If anything, the adaptation we got in 2025 is less radical than the book published in 1982, and certainly has much less care for the environmental realities of our economy. I digress. Richards is assisted in his escape from Boston by Bradley's gang and is able to use their help for a multi-day reprieve from the hunters in Manchester. He probably could have stayed longer, but his own paranoia forces him to run northwards to Portland, Maine.
Let's blame the Portland on Spain.
If we're splitting this book into a 3-act structure, the sequence with Elton Parakis is where I would place the finale of Act 2, mostly because this is when we realize Richards probably isn't going to make it. He's almost immediately cornered in a place that was supposed to offer him shelter, where Elton's demonic mother reports him. He gets shot, breaks an ankle, and begins the grueling, painful process of bleeding out very, very slowly, which is when we are finally introduced to Amelia Williams. How do I best categorize Amelia? Imagine your most annoying CNN-watching friend. Like someone still accepting Hasbro talking points 2.5 years into a genocide, you know? Her own self-delusion, reinforced by the helpful support of state-sponsored media, frames her as a good, moral, upstanding individual who cares about the right stuff and doesn't deserve anything bad happening to her, despite all of her actions continuing to allow the stark degradation of the material economic conditions of her fellow human beings living in sight of her on a daily basis, yet ignored due to their own moral failures, causing them to be poor. She does not care if bad things happen to bad people. Bad people deserve bad things happening to them, and since the TV told her so, all the people in those slums, all the greedy people on those game shows are bad, so they deserve the cruelty inflicted upon them. Despite having a bit of a redemption arc, the novel doesn't really show Amelia in a very positive light. Anyway, Richards kidnaps her and hijacks a plane. He beats the record for longest ever run on the show and is offered a job as lead hunter, working for the system he so utterly despises for the prospect of financial stability. He almost takes it too, showcasing how brutal the mechanisms of capitalism's self-perpetuation truly are. That is, until he finds out about his wife and daughter have been murdered. Surprise! They got stabbed to death by tweakers off-screen within the first 100 pages, thus cementing the grimdark nature this story so effortlessly maintains, while also kicking off the big climactic showdown. And boy, it's a doozy. Richards, learning this, leads to the most insane series of events I have ever read in a novel, and an ending that left me speechless for multiple minutes. The pilots of the plane Richards has hijacked are hunters, at least some of them, and They're all flying back to the TV station skyscraper, which controls all Freebie broadcasts. Upon getting the bad news about his family, Ben Richards goes on a rampage, killing all of the crew and getting shot by McCone in the process. He kills McCone in turn, but not before being fatally wounded. Amelia is given a parachute and told she will die if she doesn't bail from the plane, and Richards' intestines start getting caught on a chair's armrest. Amelia jumps, Richards untangles his guts, and the plane receives a new, rapidly dying captain. Elsewhere, Killian is sitting in his office waiting to hear news from McCone. He looks up to see a plane he is waiting for flying directly at his building. The novel ends with Ben Richards flipping the bird while committing a 9/11 to blow up CBS. So, The Terminator. This is going to be an odd film to dissect. It has all the trappings of an 80s sci-fi dystopia film, the horrible sets in industrial wastelands with cheap plasticky costumes, but has an underlying message more akin to the protest movements of the 70s. It's full of camp and has protracted segments of interpretive jazzercise, yet finds itself specifically interested in state-sponsored violence and the sexual predation of professional wrestlers. Entire characters have been cut, others have been added, and those who are left are completely recontextualized to fit a story which has been fabricated almost entirely from whole cloth. French lawsuit notwithstanding. Outside of the premise of a game show where people die, a horribly oppressive state which controls its citizenry through the television, and a man named Ben Richards, The Running Man 1987 has almost nothing to do with Stephen King's original movie, much to his chagrin. Instead, this film exists more as a piece of 1980s revolution slop, filled with watery critiques of authoritarianism, mild allusions to the right-wing obsession with chastity, and a general satirization of American TV. Whereas the book attempted to paint a picture of morally gray people doing horrible things for both good and bad reasons, the 87 film set up a much more straightforward good versus evil dynamic, capable of being stomached by a matinee audience predisposed with last night's hangover. The plot serves as an excuse to cart Arnold around from set piece to set piece, showing how cool and badass he is, while backdooring a trickle of populist talking points into the minds of your average 80s Arnie fan. Because of this, I'm not going to explain the plot to you. If you're really dying to see this thing, just go watch it. The movie is only an hour and 40 minutes long, and you can play it at 125% speed to fix most of the pacing issues. 4 out of 10. Rather, I want to take a few moments to examine some major plot through lines for our two main characters, Ben Richards and Amber Mendez.
In this version of the story, Richards is a cop. He flies a military police helicopter and is arrested by his superiors for not wanting to gun down innocent civilians. He spends 18 months in prison after having been framed for a massacre he didn't commit, and then escapes with 2 future Running Man contestants. Despite this, though, despite being on both ends of a brutally repressive authoritarian regime, Richards spends most of the movie claiming to not be involved in politics. He derides his friends for their political dogma, belittles members of the revolutionaries for being young, inexperienced dreamers, and is constantly attempting to run away from the realities of the police state he exists in and escape with his own skin. Sure, he'll put himself into dangerous situations if his friends are in immediate danger, but he always tries to dampen their revolutionary spirit in the process of doing so. He tells Laughlin to keep down the rhetoric, Weiss to leave off the satellite relay, and Amber that she really just should have shut up so they could be in Hawaii. Why? Better yet, what does this tell us, if anything, about the wider thesis of the movie, if one is to exist at all? I think the best way to look at this is when the movie says Richards is right, and when it says he is wrong. Attempting to stop the massacre of protesters, Richards eventually gets the girl and lives happily ever after. Claiming to be apolitical and he's better off on his own, almost immediately gets captured and thrown back into prison. Decides to enter a death game in order to save his friends, is able to begin chipping away at the state state's biggest piece of propaganda, eventually leading to the downfall of the network. Is given the option to leave the game and try to survive on his own, it is outright stated he will be hunted down by the US Army and killed off-screen. It seems to me that the movie wants us to realize collective action is the only way to work against an authoritarian system. Now, I will be the first to admit this framework is kind of shaky. The political message of the film is muddled at the best of times and not outwardly apparent at others, but that's the whole story, so you're gonna have to bear with me. The offhand comments about TV rotting children's brains is certainly out of the right-wing playbook, but the framing of Killian's traditional morality bit is antithetical to conservative talking points, and the structure of the film encourages collectivism at its basis. Any argument to the contrary would belay either a deep misunderstanding of the themes at play in this story or a fundamental inability to parse them. I mean, this movie is lived up, man. This thing is woke as fuck. Just look at how it objectifies its female lead. I promise I'm going somewhere with this. An uncritical viewer of The Running Man might argue that the movie objectifies Amber Mendez. This occurs in both a diegetic and non-diegetic manner. Within the universe of the film, Amber is viewed almost exclusively as a sex object. Richards uses her as a stupid, pretty prop in his botched airport escape. Killian calls her promiscuous before throwing her into the game show, and Dynamo tries to rape her. Twice. I don't need to tell you that's fucked up. What I do need to tell you, however, is Amber doesn't really make decisions for herself. Everyone treats her as a tool, everyone tells her what to do and where to go, and nobody seems all too excited to have her around, outside of being something pretty to look at. So how come Amber is the reason for Killian's defeat? Well, because of the logic underpinning a critical view of Amber's character. A critical viewer of The Running Man would argue that the script and cinematography objectifies Amber Mendez, but there are elements of this non-diegetic objectification which exist incongruously with both each other and the surface-level examination I brought up in the previous paragraph. The visual language of the film as it relates to Amber is the typically bog-standard gooner slop most people can expect to receive from an Arnold Schwarzenegger star vehicle.
Oh yeah, we're gonna have this hot Latina chick be the love interest, and she's gonna exercise in lingerie, and Arnie's gonna have to tie her up to her exercise kit, and she's gonna be so hot, bro. Yo, bro. Later on, we should have this big fat guy who's an opera singer, so you know he's like gay or has a small dick or something, try to rape her, so Arnie has to come and save her, and it'll be super hot, bro.
You think I'm lying, but just watch this clip.
Boy, lucky he didn't kill you too. Or rape you and kill you. Or kill you then rape you. Meet a guy like that. What would stop him? Yeah, what would?
This mentality bleeds its way into the script, as is obvious from the bit I just showed you, but this visual language of objectification is placed in the same movie as this.
I understand that you're single, Amber, and that you live on the west side. And not surprisingly, she's flawed in the law and traditional morality all her life.
With this in mind, you will notice how the grossest acts of violence and objectification which take place against Amber, Hawaii escape sequence notwithstanding, are perpetrated by extensions of state power. This is a little bit of a holdover from the novel, but there is a moralistic quality to the justification for the government's actions in this movie. It takes on an air of the tamest Fox News segment you've heard in the past couple weeks. All contestants appearing on The Running Man must be portrayed as having committed a sin against both decency and the state. This is true of Richards, this is true of Laughlin, and it is true of Mendez. Not only is she Richards' accomplice, she must also be his lover and a whore to boot. This way, people will cheer as her agency is degraded as opposed to cower at the brutality of her punishment. But the underlying logic of the story treats her as the most important character in the film. We as an audience are supposed to look at the monstrosity of Dynamo or the hypocritically moralistic repugnance of Killian and be made aghast at the misogyny they represent. From this, we begin to notice that Amber Mendez has the most fleshed out story arc of the whole cast, how she goes from oblivious liberal yuppie to dyed-in-the-wool revolutionary, how she becomes the one who topples the network. Oh, did you miss that? When you paused the video, went and watched the movie at 1.25 times speed, and came back, did you miss that? Or did you not watch the movie and just kept on with the video? I see you. I know what you are. The film, the people in it, give Richards all the credit for becoming a hero and leading the resistance to victory against the network, but it's actually Amber who puts him on that pedestal to begin with. She's the one who steals the true recording of the Bakersfield Massacre. She's the one who memorizes the uplink code. She's the one who is able to deliver all of this to the resistance, allowing them to hack into the broadcasting satellites, deliver the truth, and sway public opinion in their favor. And what does she get for all her trouble on the face of it? A joke about her pussy and a smooch from a beefcake. Textually, though, there's no doing this without her. There's no big man who swoops in and saves the day without a woman to run logistics in the background, a pair of revolutionary ideologues planting seeds whose trees will bear fruit they will never live to taste, and a massive army of tired, poor, huddled masses yearning to breathe free and willing to die in order to reach their justice. In other words, the Running Man is kinda woke, bitch. Anyway, next movie.
And finally, the moment you've all been waiting for, it's time to talk about The Running Man, hit Korean game show. It's apparently quite popular. Nah, I'm just kidding. This movie is extremely structurally faithful to the novel, bearing one key difference that I will get to at the end. This is America after all. It's not like Hollywood would do a 9/11, right? So some bits had to move around. That being said, I think a lot of what this movie does is actually an improvement to the original story. The world feels a bit more lived in, the side characters are more fleshed out, and it takes away all of Ben's 4chan posting at Killian. Hell, it's even got a "Hey Mama's Lesbian" now. Neat. The important thing to remember while examining this film is that in the act of making this story more full, the producers also made it more digestible to a movie-going audience. Some of the more graphic depictions of violence have been smoothed out, minor story beats have been changed, and the underlying political message has been tweaked to be more vaguely anti-authoritarian than the revolutionary environmentalist message King crafted in the 80s. At the same time, the credits open with a quick blurb as to how and why IEDs are effective for urban insurgencies, so the more radical aspects of this story are still present in the movie if you scratch beneath the surface. Because of this, I won't go over the story here. Even if you haven't read the book, you've seen this movie. And if you haven't, go watch it. It's an 8 out of 10. I don't need to go over every plot point. I'm just gonna do some examination and generally celebrate one of my favorite movies of 2025. Let's start by going over the atmosphere. This is a grimy world, both visually and culturally. The poor are bathed in smog while the rich prance around slick concrete hellscapes. Ticket kiosks are home to smiling AI faces, kindness is punishable by beatings and permanent unemployment, and the movie goes out of its way to show you how rats scurry through the walls. Beyond this, the media landscape of the Running Man's world is both vapid and cruel, ranging anywhere from state-sanctioned televised murder to an extremely faithful parody of Keeping Up with the Kardashians called Americanos. Most importantly, sarcasm is a constant and ever-present aspect of this novel's visual language. Characters coolly sip Monster and Liquid Death, snack on Butterfingers, and win lifetime supplies of Fun Twinks cereal. Richards hams up his performance for the freebie audience, and Lacone tries to act as suave and mysterious as possible while really just being kind of a loser. Even in their most sincere moments, most of the characters have an air of sarcasm floating around them, as if they themselves are as detached from sincerity as the world they existed. Of course, this fits in perfectly with the wider themes of the story. Every one of the major action set pieces is designed to be exciting for us, the viewer, but there are also diegetic reasons for why the action set pieces are so exciting. Killian's constant adage of is an acknowledgement of how this world has obfuscated violence from its major political base, upper middle class and rich people, while tempering the unwanted masses through the illusion of social mobility. Ultraviolence committed against the poor within this film is done so in an aesthetically pleasing way, and it is done so in order to serve two functions. First of all, the well-off Americans who casually watch television are not able to stomach the realities of state oppression. We see this in the real world, and so too is it mirrored in The Running Man. Instead, it must be placed through a series of filters in order to make the affluent viewer feel morally righteous while cheering on the destruction of their fellow human beings. Moral dichotomies must be created. The victims of governmental and corporate oppression must be placed in the category of degenerate other. They must have some kind of defect society has deemed as undesirable or evil. They need to have done something wrong. Maybe they lived in a life of sin. Maybe they're all godless commies. Whatever it is, their punishment is turned into a sporting match where the viewers at home get to feel like they're on the winning team. Why do you think McCone dresses like that? Why do you think the hunters are all so slick and cool looking while all of the contestants are dragged out in chains and shown in villainous lighting? Why do you think Richards is called a terrorist for blowing up a few goons after the state paid him to do so? Why do you think McCone can kill civilians while insisting that Laughlin is the monster? Does this remind you of anything that might be happening right now? Maybe somewhere in this circle? This image crafting is necessary in order to pacify the people at home who call themselves good for not having an opinion on how they are governed. It is a manufacturing of consent necessary to maintain the structure of corporate power present within our society. But it can't operate alone. Second to this media construction is the illusion of social mobility. Who cares if you've been blacklisted from your job? Who cares if you've been kicked off the dole? Who cares if you were born poor, are poor, live in a pile of shit apartment, and will die of starvation or illness? You will always have the freebie. And if you work hard enough, if you can keep your health and mental well-being together just long enough, if you can endure just enough torture, then you, or maybe your family, can become one of the lucky lauded few who get to be the boot instead of the one getting stepped on. You see how these systems are simpatico, yes? You understand why they function? The image of a fat man running on a treadmill helps uphold the moral sensibilities of this group, while Arnold's smiling face on the fancy new money helps tamp down the hatred of this one. Both parts of the underclasses are thus pacified, and the corporate executives, who are the actual enemy, get to continue fucking everyone over. Once this illusion is broken, it starts to lead toward a state of blowback. It leads to a state of unrest. It leads to people doing crazy and destructive things like how we saw Richards do in the books. Again, this is a Hollywood movie, so they aren't gonna do the 9/11 ending, right? It's more you can use this to understand the progression of how things happen. You understand how we get from this to this. Speaking of sick children, Richards has one, and boy does it drive both his character and caricature. Ben Richards, realizing better than most everyone besides McCone how he is little more than a media personality, invents a little catchphrase for himself halfway through the movie.
You think you're the guy who stops me from seeing my daughter again?
It really helps to show his transformation from provocateur to icon. Where Richards exists as a static character in the book, really only choosing to focus his misanthropy into an environmental message as opposed to altering himself as a person, movie Richards takes the journey of a revolutionary hinted at by the Arnold portrayal back in the 80s. In this version, Throckmorton's second act transformation catalyst remains the same, but rather than having Richards become the world's least revolutionary eco-warrior, he instead embodies a trait already present in his character to the fullest extent he can, that of a working class hero. We are shown Richards to be pro-union within the first minute of the film. When Richards is offered the Running Man, it is only after a minutes-long sequence showing how much he cares about his fellow workers and how many hard labor jobs he has done. Killian then mentions how half of Americans think trade unions should be illegal, and Richards responds proudly that he is in the other half. In the course of the story, our protagonist makes a point of staying with his own kind, as Killian puts it, but who is that kind with which he stays? Who is it that helps him on his journey? Well, this guy is an internet communist, and this guy is a regular Fred Hampton. Okay, so Richards is a union guy. Big whoop. What is that supposed to achieve? Well, nothing and everything. Anyone who puts more than about 5 seconds of critical thought into it will understand why unions are a good thing. It's just that there's a lot of propaganda surrounding unions, which makes them unpalatable on the surface level to some people, as summed up in this Delta Airlines meme. Richards knows this. He knows the network lies to everyone constantly because he faces the brunt of their oppression. He knows a certain visual language has been constructed around the network's message that is effective at controlling the masses. Therefore, much of his transformation throughout the course of the film is how he learns to co-opt that language for himself. By the time he kidnaps Amelia and hands her the gun he used to do it, Ben Richards is fully aware of how his image has come to supersede him. He has learned how to play the game of ratings and self-promotion and has used it to effectively hijack the show he is now the star of, alongside the plane he intends to use as his getaway. In this sense, he has taken a more active role in the production of his image crafting, so much so that he can be seen as deal-making with Killian in the final act. In the book, Richards decides to go on a rampage because of an overwhelming sense of suicidal grief, and while that is still present in this version of the story, it fits in better with the myth Ben has been able to create around his person. Both versions are offered a job, but where Book Richards is told he will work in secret after a mock execution, Movie Richards is going to have his own show to run. Movie Richards doesn't kill the hunters out of a sense of cynical loathing, he does so in an act of righteous vengeance because that is what his created self would do. Killian knows this, Ben knows this. It is the culmination of a dialogue the two have been having through both words and actions over the course of the film. It is a negotiation between two opposing viewpoints of how the Richards image should be laundered. On one hand, Killian wants a killer, cool and suave like how McCone pretends to be, who is willing to toe the corporate line and reinforce state power. On the other hand, Richards comes to want a folk hero, willing to stir up trouble while looking out for the little guy. We see this interplay in he and Elton's escape sequence. While stumbling through the mine in the upper reaches of Maine, Elton is brutally injured and slices a hunter's Achilles. Killian wants Richards to shoot the hunter in cold blood, proving how ruthless Richards can be and thus providing credence to the Running Man's entire narrative. Society's ills will do anything for cash and need suppression. However, Richards refuses this order, instead trying to save an injured friend. In fact, only turning toward explosive violence when said friend is killed and he is backed into a corner, therefore strengthening the narrative of beleaguered everyman who must commit great violence as a neutral response to the level of violence shown as acceptable by the state. So when Richards kills the rest of Killian's goons and is left the last man standing on the aeroplane, it is not as a corporate lackey awaiting his opportunity to collect a fat paycheck. Why else would he give Amelia his backpack full of leftist pamphlets before parachuting her out of the cabin? Instead, he hijacks that airplane as a working class hero, willing to die for his principles despite Killian threatening to frame him for 9/11. Wait, what? This is Hollywood. They're not gonna do the 9/11 ending, right? Oh, fuck, they're actually gonna do it. Hang on. Hello, Mom? We've been attacked. Oh my God, they hit the Pentagon. Whew. Oh, thank goodness. They hit him with the old Tel Aviv special. Got a little worried there for a second. This interplay and subsequent revolutionary ending kind of tips the hand as to the story's underlying mechanics. It is a faculty of the narrative which has not been able to be expunged from either of the Running Man's adaptations. The oppressive few shall always be fought against by the many oppressed masses until some sense of justice can be achieved. Sometimes that means crashing an airplane. Sometimes that means raiding a television network. And sometimes that means shooting a CEO in the face while snarking a sarcastic quip. Whatever form it takes, the violence perpetrated by an oppressed people can be seen as a necessary and oftentimes vindicated response to the level of violence enacted by the state. Why does Book Richards blow up a building? Because the world has killed his family and he believes he has no other option. Why does Arnie Richards raid a TV station? Because it is the propaganda tool used by the government which slaughtered protesters. Why does Movie Richards shoot Killian? Because Killian has helped manufacture the atrocities people like Richards are forced to survive on a daily basis. So, to go back to what I opened the video with, no. This movie didn't go woke The 80s movie isn't better because Arnie is a big alpha male who gets some pussy, and neither movie is anywhere near as nihilistic or radical as the book Stephen King wrote in the 80s. Anybody who claims otherwise is either willfully deluding themselves or has a fundamental inability to read beyond a base set of visual stimuli and culture war talking points, and has practically no critical thinking skills whatsoever. This is the most violent piece of environmental media I have ever had the pleasure of interacting with. Watch the movie. Read the book if you want to. Have a nice day.